About 3 weeks after Rameshwar came back, I went on the altar just after Mangalartik to address Gaur Nitai. And this is the photo of Gaur Nitai. I mean, this is not that day in question, but I dressed him on the day this photo was taken. Anyway, they were always, I always considered them my personal deities, even though that's been so many years ago that I dressed them. Anyway, about 3 weeks after Rameshwar came back, I went on the altar just after Mangalartik to dress Gaur Nitai. As soon as I got on the altar, which was approximately 5:20 a.m. Pacific Coast time, tears started to swell up in my eyes. I couldn't figure out why. I tried holding them back, but eventually I wasn't able to, and the tears just started streaming down my face. It says in the Nectar Devotion that one should not cry before the deities, so the tears made me feel very uncomfortable as I was standing right before Gaur Nitai and Rukmini Dorkadish. I ran off the altar, dried my tears, regained my composure, went back on, but as soon as I came before Lord Chaitanya, again the tears started swelling up. I had no idea at all why I was feeling so emotional. I recall one of the other pujaris, as I was dressing the deities and I had to keep running off the altar, one of the other pujaris looked over wondering what was going on. But I would run off the altar, compose myself, go back on. Finally got time, I had to put on Lord Chaitanya's dhoti, his pants, skirt, dhoti, whatever it was. The cloth had to be tied around the waist, and the pull strings were out the back. On the LA altar, we did this while kneeling on our knees on the altar in front of the deities. We didn't do it from around behind. We dressed them all from right in front of the deities. So while I was putting on this dhoti, the cloth, I had to put my arms around Lord Chaitanya's waist. At that point, the tears swelled up again. I tried to hold them back, but they started running down my cheek, and I was at the total loss of what was going on. What was happening to me? On one side, I felt embarrassed and ashamed because I couldn't control myself from crying directly in front of Lord Chaitanya. But at the same time, I was experiencing a very deep and just complete feeling of love and warmth between Lord Chaitanya and myself that I didn't know what was going on. I had already got the dhoti around Gauranga, and I had to finish tying it before I ran off the altar. So I was tying the strings. All of a sudden, the feelings just burst to 1,000 times stronger. And this time, the tears just let loose like a rain, and I couldn't stop. At that point, I couldn't see everything. Everything was a blur. While my arms were around Lord Chaitanya, the only thing I can describe what it felt like is that I felt that Mahaprabhu had put his arms also around me. And for that very intense moment, I felt his unlimited mercy of his embrace. At that moment, I was no longer in this material world. My tears were falling on his feet. Although I wanted to feel ashamed, just the warmth of Mahaprabhu's embrace drowned out all those feelings. Somehow I got the dhoti tied and again ran off the altar, and my emotions were just at a fever pitch. I felt both embarrassed, but I felt very blessed at the same time. I just didn't know what was going on. As I said, I don't feel comfortable sharing this publicly. This took place 43 years ago. And I said, I've never shared these details, intimate details, with anyone before now. It was a very personal experience between myself and Lord Gauranga, and I had no reason to share it with others. But now I feel it's connected with this story. After coming off the altar, I dried my tears, I dried my eyes, and I composed myself. I went back on, and I was able to finish both Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, and the tears didn't come back again after that. And a little bit later that morning, I came for the greeting of the deities and then Srila Prabhupada's Guru Puja. And as I recall, it was just at the end of Guru Puja that Rameshwar entered the temple room walked straight up to the microphone. His face appeared like as it was chiseled from cold gray stone. From that intense grave look, I knew. He announced that His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, had departed this world. There was a groan of horror just throughout the temple room. Parikshit, one of the BBT, his main BBT artists, was sitting just several feet from me. He let out with a wail and just began crying. I found myself crying, as many of us were. The deity doors were open, and I looked up at my Gaura-Nitai deities, wondering what life will be like without Srila Prabhupada here. How will ISKCON survive? How will I survive? Rameshwar then informed us that Srila Prabhupada had left this world at 7:20 p.m. Vrindavan, India time, which then he said was at 5:50 a.m. Pacific time, our time in Los Angeles. 5:50 a.m., I thought. That was 1.5 hours earlier. 5:50 a.m.? I was still looking at Lord Gauranga on the altar, and I realized that's when I was on the altar dressing him. 5:50 a.m.? That would have been the exact time that I was putting on his dhoti. That's when the tears were pouring from my eyes, and that's when I felt the divine, loving, merciful embrace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now I knew why. That was the exact moment that Srila Prabhupada was departing this world. I had gone on the altar at around 5:15, 5:20. And from that moment, when I first entered the altar room, I began to feel such strong emotions. And it would have been right at 5:50 that I would have been putting on Gauranga's dhoti. I'm still looking up at Lord Gauranga on the altar, and so I thanked him. From within, I said, Mahaprabhu, I couldn't go and be with Srila Prabhupada when he left this world, but somehow, by your kind and causeless mercy, you allowed me to be with you. Thank you, Mahaprabhu, thank you. I was praying to him like that when it dawned on me. That is the prayer that I had asked him the day that Rameshwar had come and told us that Srila Prabhupada didn't want us to come to Vrindavan to be with him. When Rameshwar told us that, I had looked up at Lord Chaitanya and made that simple and what I thought was almost childish prayer at the time. That if I can't be with Srila Prabhupada when he leaves this world, then Mahaprabhu, I want to be with you. I had forgotten all about it until just then. So yes, Mahaprabhu, it has been 43 years. And as I record this video today, 43 years later, I want to thank you publicly for being so kind and merciful on someone as insignificant and as fallen as me. If you can be so merciful to such a sinner and an insignificant, worthless devotee like me, how much more you can be merciful to all those who actually really love you and have devotion for you and are actually worthy of your mercy. Because I couldn't be with Srila Prabhupada when he left this world, because the JBC men told us that Srila Prabhupada didn't want us to come and be with him, somehow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave me his direct mercy at that very moment that Srila Prabhupada was departing this world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so kind and merciful. Jai. Sorry.